I never imagined that a single flick of someone's fingers could bring me closer to losing my child forever, but that's exactly what happened. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, and my daughter Lily, my sweet, disabled, soft-spoken 10-year-old, was lying on the porch, connected to her portable oxygen tank like always. She wasn't screaming, she wasn't crying, she was just breathing. And that's when Karen, the infamous HOA enforcer of our neighborhood, marched across our yard with her clipboard, her sunglasses, and that cold, dead expression she always had. Before I could understand what she was doing, she leaned down and switched off my daughter's oxygen tank. Just like that. Just because she said Lily was too loud. And the moment I saw Lily's lips turn blue, I realized this wasn't just HOA drama. This was attempted murder. Before the story properly begins, I want to ask you something important. Backhand index pointing right, which city are you watching this video from? Drop your city name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel across the USA. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe before the story starts because what you're about to hear is real, raw, emotional, and absolutely shocking. All right, let's begin. My name is Daniel, and I'm a single father raising my daughter Lily, who has a severe chronic respiratory disability. She needs oxygen support 24/7. Our life has been filled with hospital visits, sleepless nights, and moments when I thought I'd lose her. But Lily? She always smiled through everything. She loved sitting outside on our porch, listening to birds, drawing, humming softly to herself. Our neighborhood seemed peaceful at first, a suburban block with trimmed lawns, American flags, and smiling mailboxes. But behind those smiles was a monster called Karen, our HOA president. A woman who believed she owned the entire street. She hated kids. She hated noise. But most of all, she hated anything that wasn't under her control. For months, she kept warning me about Lily breaking community peace rules, even though Lily barely even spoke above a whisper. But the day she approached my daughter while I was just a few feet away, the day her hand reached for that oxygen knob, was the day my life turned into a nightmare I will never forget. It started one warm afternoon in early June, the kind of American summer day where the air smells like cut grass and barbecue smoke floats above the rooftops. Lily was sitting in her favorite spot on the porch swing, wrapped in a light blanket, her small oxygen tank resting beside her. She was drawing little flowers in her sketchbook, humming quietly like she always did. Her voice was soft, fragile, the kind of sound you could only hear if you were standing right next to her. I was fixing a loose wooden panel on the porch railing when I saw Karen walking down the sidewalk, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, sunglasses reflecting the entire street. Her walk? Stiff, sharp, like she was patrolling a prison yard, not a neighborhood. The moment her eyes landed on our house, I knew something was about to happen. She stopped right in front of my lawn, tilted her head, and frowned, that signature Karen frown that told you she was about to ruin your day. "What is that noise?" she snapped, raising a manicured finger toward Lily. I blinked, confused. What noise? That humming. That whining sound she keeps making. It's disruptive. My jaw tightened. She's not disruptive. She's just humming while she draws. Karen clicked her tongue disapprovingly. This is a quiet community. And your daughter's machine, she pointed at the oxygen tank, is ruining the aesthetic and the peace. My blood boiled. Instantly. That machine keeps her alive. But Karen didn't care. She never did. She began scribbling something aggressively on her clipboard, muttering about violations, unsightly medical equipment, and excessive porch activity. Every word she said felt like poison aimed directly at my child. Lily, still unaware, looked up and smiled gently. "Hi, Miss Karen." Karen scoffed. "Children shouldn't sit outside, unsupervised. I'm literally right here." I snapped. She ignored me. Then she stepped closer to Lily, way too close, and the moment her shadow fell over my daughter, every instinct in me screamed to pull Lily away. But I wanted to believe Karen wouldn't cross a line that dangerous. I was wrong. Karen reached out and tapped the oxygen tank lightly with her finger. "Is this even safe?" It looks unregulated. I should report this to the HOA board. Lily's fingers tightened around her sketchbook. She hated confrontation. Her breathing quickened. Karen, I warned, stepping closer, back up. Now. She glared at me, raising her chin. You know what? I am sick of this. Sick of your daughter making noise. Sick of this machine hissing all day. Sick of you acting like rules don't apply because you want sympathy. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. Lily didn't deserve any of this. She never had. Before I could reply, Karen leaned down, her hand hovering dangerously close to the oxygen valve. That was the first moment I realized Karen wasn't just cruel, she was unpredictable, reckless, capable of doing something unforgivable. I stepped between her and Lily, my voice firm. Touch that tank, and I swear. She cut me off with a smirk. You swear what? You don't scare me, Daniel. I run this neighborhood. She turned sharply and walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement like gunshots. I lifted Lily gently into my arms. Her breathing was shakier than usual. Daddy, did I do something wrong? My chest tightened painfully. No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. Some people just can't see how special you are. But deep inside, something darker grew. A fear. A warning. A gut feeling that this wasn't the end. Karen wasn't done with us. Not even close. She had just declared war. And I had no idea how far she was willing to go. The day Karen finally crossed the line started deceptively calm, the kind of morning that tricks you into thinking nothing bad could possibly happen. The sun was soft, birds were chirping, and Lily was actually having a good breathing day. For her, that was rare. Some mornings she woke up struggling for air, her tiny chest rising and falling too fast, but that day she looked peaceful. She sat on the porch swing, as usual, her sketchbook balanced on her knees, the oxygen tank resting quietly beside her. Every few seconds the tank made a gentle hiss-click sound, the normal rhythm of her machine. To me, it was the sound of life, the sound that kept my daughter breathing. But to Karen, it was noise pollution. I was in the kitchen making pancakes when I heard it, the sharp, rapid footsteps of someone marching across the lawn. The steps were too fast, too angry, too deliberate to be a neighbor passing by. My stomach dropped. I wiped my hands on a towel and hurried toward the window. And there she was, Karen, in full HOA uniform, navy blazer, badge, clipboard pressed tight to her chest, storming straight toward the porch like she owned the property. I rushed out the front door before she could get any closer. What the hell are you doing here? I said, keeping myself between her and Lily. She narrowed her eyes. We've received multiple noise complaints. I stared in disbelief. From who? The birds. She ignored the sarcasm. Your daughter has been making continuous whining noises all week. It disrupts community peace. Lily shrank back, gripping her sketchbook tighter. I'm not loud, she whispered. Karen's lip curled. Even whispering counts as sound, sweetheart, and rules are rules. Something inside me snapped. Karen, she needs oxygen to live. Her machine isn't noise, it's medical equipment. That's exactly the problem, she said coldly. Medical equipment doesn't belong on a porch. It ruins the visual harmony of the neighborhood. So, I'm issuing an immediate citation and... Then she paused, and her eyes drifted downward, to the oxygen tank, to the one thing keeping my daughter alive. I saw something in her expression shift, as if an idea entered her mind that should never exist in anyone's head. She stepped closer, too close, and before I could block her, she crouched beside the tank. Karen, I warned, don't touch. She grabbed the valve, with her bare hand, as if it were a water faucet. This, she snapped, is the source of the noise. Time slowed. My heart raced so fast it hurt. Lily suddenly gasped, her eyes widening in fear. Because Karen, without hesitation, without a hint of humanity, turned the oxygen valve off. The hiss of air stopped instantly. Everything went silent, horrifically silent. Then Lily's body jerked as her lungs collapsed inward, desperate for the air that wasn't coming. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her lips trembled, turning pale, then bluish. Her hands clawed weakly at the air. She couldn't breathe. My baby couldn't breathe. Oh my God, Lily! I shouted, pushing Karen aside so hard she stumbled backward. She didn't even look concerned. Not even slightly. Instead, she scoffed, "This is what happens when you ignore HOA guidelines. Maybe now you'll understand." Understand what? That she was willing to kill a child to prove a point? I twisted the valve open with shaking hands, praying it wasn't too late. The machine sputtered back to life, releasing air into Lily's mask. I lifted her into my arms, her body limp and trembling. "Breathe, sweetheart, breathe. Come on," I whispered, trying to stay calm though everything inside me was shattering. Slowly, painfully slowly, Lily's chest began rising again. A weak inhale, then another. Her lips regained a faint pink. But she was terrified. She clung to me with both hands, her tiny fingers shaking uncontrollably. When I looked up, Karen was brushing off her blazer, like she was the one inconvenienced. "You people always exaggerate," she said. "She's fine." I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But Lily needed me. "You turned off her oxygen," I growled. "Do you realize what could have happened?" Karen shrugged. "She needs to learn to stay quiet in a quiet neighborhood." That was it. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just HOA harassment. This wasn't just a neighbor feud. This was evil. Cold. Calculated. Evil. "You're not leaving," I said, stepping in front of her. "You're staying right here until the police?" "The police?" She laughed like it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. "For what? Adjusting an eyesore on your porch?" I stepped closer, my voice shaking. "You tried to kill my daughter." "And you have no proof," she snapped back proudly. "It's your word against mine." Then she smirked, the smirk of someone who thought she was invincible. "I run this HOA. I set the rules. I can have your house removed from the neighborhood association entirely." "You don't own my child's life," I said through clenched teeth. But Karen had already turned away, walking off my porch like she didn't just almost murder a disabled child. As I held Lily close, feeling her breath finally stabilizing against my chest, one thought burned in my mind with a heat I'd never felt before. This wasn't over. She wasn't going to stop. And if I didn't do something next time, she might succeed. For the rest of that day, the world around me felt blurry, like everything was happening underwater. I kept replaying the moment the oxygen stopped, the way Lily's face drained of color, the way her tiny hands clawed desperately at the air. No parent should ever have to see their child fight for a single breath. No parent should ever have to wonder if this is the last moment they'll hold their baby alive. I carried Lily inside and placed her gently on the couch, wrapping her in her soft pink blanket. She looked fragile, even more than usual. Her breaths were slow, shaky, like each inhale was a mountain she was climbing. I sat beside her, brushing her hair back, trying to be calm even though my entire body was trembling. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice weak. Did I do something wrong?" And that question, that innocent question, broke me in ways I cannot explain. "No, sweetheart," I said, my voice cracking. "You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't deserve any of this." Her eyes filled with tears, and she tried to blink them away, but couldn't. They streamed down her cheeks silently, like her body was too exhausted to cry out loud. "I was just drawing," she murmured. "I know," I said. "I know, baby." She closed her eyes. "I don't want to stay here anymore. I don't want Karen to come back." Hearing my daughter say she didn't feel safe in her own home, that was a pain I cannot describe. A punch to the soul. I held her close, letting her small body rest against me. I wanted to tell her everything was going to be okay, but I didn't know that. Not anymore. She fell asleep in my arms, exhausted, traumatized, and I kept watching her chest rise and fall, terrified of every breath. I checked her oxygen tank 3 times. I held the mask gently against her face, and every time she stirred, I whispered soothing words. But when she finally drifted off into deeper sleep, my calm shattered. All the fear, all the helplessness, all the rage. It hit me like a tidal wave. I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, turned the faucet on to muffle the sound, and finally let myself break. My hands pressed against the counter. My head bowed, and I cried. Not soft tears, not controlled sadness, but a gut-wrenching, chest-crushing collapse. Because how do you explain to a child that someone tried to kill her just because she was too loud? How do you explain why adults can be monsters? Why the world is so cruel? Why someone like Karen exists? I splashed cold water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked like a stranger, red eyes, tight jaw, breath shaking. I wasn't just scared anymore. I wasn't just angry. I was determined. This will not happen again. When I returned to the living room, Lily had woken up. She was curled up in the corner of the couch, hugging her sketchbook, like she was trying to make herself smaller, erase herself from the world. I hated seeing her like that. My brave little girl reduced to fear. I sat down next to her. She rested her head on my shoulder. "Daddy," she said quietly, "what if she turns it off again? What if I'm alone?" I swallowed hard, choosing my words carefully. "You will never be alone," I said softly, "and I will never let anyone hurt you again. Not ever." She nodded, though her eyes still held that deep, painful fear. The kind of fear that doesn't go away overnight. I decided she needed fresh air, real air, safe air, so I carried her outside, but stayed with her every second. I sat directly beside her on the porch, one hand on her back, watching her breathe. She didn't hum. She didn't draw. She didn't smile. She just looked around nervously, scanning every corner of the street, afraid Karen would appear out of nowhere. Every sound, a car door, a distant dog bark, even a squirrel rustling in a tree, made her flinch. This wasn't my daughter. This wasn't my Lily who fought through hospital stays and surgeries with courage. This was a child who had been traumatized by a grown woman who thought she had power over everyone. I couldn't stand it. I carried her inside again, sat on the floor, and opened her sketchbook. "Can you draw with me?" I said. She hesitated. Then slowly she nodded. We drew together, simple flowers, trees, little stars, and little by little her breathing steadied. Her fingers loosened. She even smiled once, a small, fragile smile, but a smile nonetheless. Then she drew something else. A small figure on a swing, and another tall figure standing nearby, and a little rectangle next to them, the oxygen tank. She handed me the drawing. "That's us," she whispered. My throat tightened. "And this?" She pointed to a scribble on the side, sharp and dark. "That's her. Karen." The shadow hovering over everything. I hugged Lily again, feeling her tiny arms wrap around my neck. "She can't hurt us, right?" she asked one more time. "She won't, I promised. I'll make sure of it." But inside, I knew promises weren't enough anymore. I had to take action. Legal action. Protective action. Something, anything, that would ensure Karen never came near my daughter again. Lily was getting tired again, so I tucked her in bed, kissed her forehead, and watched her until she fell asleep. Then I stood up, grabbed my phone, and dialed someone I never thought I'd have to call. The police. But what happened next would shock me even more than the oxygen incident. Because Karen wasn't done. Not even close. The police arrived 20 minutes later, 2 officers, calm and professional, but the moment they stepped onto my porch and I explained what happened, I could see their expression shift from routine politeness to alarmed seriousness. "She turned off her oxygen tank?" Officer Martinez repeated slowly, as if he needed to confirm he'd heard it right. "Yes," I said. My daughter almost passed out. Her lips turned blue. The other officer, a tall woman named Harper, crouched beside the tank to inspect it. "This is medical grade," she said. "Tampering with it is a felony." A felony. Finally, someone who understood the gravity of what Karen had done. I gestured toward Lily's bedroom window where the curtains were slightly open. "My daughter is terrified. She hasn't spoken since it happened." Officer Martinez nodded. "We'll take your statement. But do you have any video footage?" I froze. Video footage. Proof. The only thing Karen didn't think I had. My stomach tightened. "No, I don't." My doorbell cam was unplugged because I was fixing the wiring. Martinez exhaled. Without video, it's her word against yours. Exactly what Karen had taunted me with. But that doesn't mean we won't investigate, Officer Harper added firmly. This is a serious claim. We'll talk to her. They walked toward Karen's house, the ugly blue one with the perfectly trimmed shrubs and judgmental wind chimes. I watched from my living room window, my heart pounding as they knocked on her door. Karen opened it casually, wearing her smug smile like lipstick. She crossed her arms, acting shocked by the officer's presence. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could see the theatrics clearly. Karen placing a hand on her chest. Karen shaking her head sadly. Karen pointing at my house as if I were the problem. I clenched my fists, but then Harper stepped slightly closer, tone firm. Karen's smile dropped. For the first time, she looked rattled. Her jaw clenched. She shut the door harder than necessary. The officers returned. She denied everything Martinez said, claims she didn't touch the tank and you're making it up to avoid HOA penalties. I couldn't believe it. She almost killed my child. Why would I make that up? We believe you, Harper said gently, but we need evidence. Still, she handed me a card. You should file an official report. Once it's filed, we can escalate this. After they left, Lily came out quietly, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, are they taking Karen away? Not yet, I admitted, but they will. Promise, she whispered. I knelt down. I promise I'll do everything in my power. But power, that was something Karen had too much of, and something I desperately needed more of. That night, after I put Lily to sleep, I sat at the dining table with my laptop, determined to understand who we were dealing with. I typed HOA President Karen Whitmore background, and what I found, I wish I had seen months ago. At first, it was normal stuff, city council meetings, neighborhood newsletters, HOA board rosters. Then I discovered a newspaper article from 2 years back. Local HOA president accused of harassing family over disabled child's wheelchair ramp. My heart dropped. I clicked it. A family in a nearby county had installed a small ramp for their wheelchair-bound son. Karen claimed it violated the aesthetic uniformity of the neighborhood and tried to have it forcibly removed. The family filed a complaint, but Karen argued that the ramp was excessively visible. The case quietly disappeared after the family suddenly moved. I kept digging. Another article, this one from 3 years ago, HOA president threatens single mother with fines for allowing her autistic son to play in the front yard. My stomach turned. This wasn't a one-time cruelty. This wasn't inconvenience. This was a pattern. She had a history of targeting disabled children. I clicked on a community forum link, a discussion thread titled, "Anyone else have problems with HOA President Karen W?" And that's when I saw message after message. She fined us because my daughter laughs too loud. She told my wheelchair-using husband he couldn't sit outside. She's power drunk. Stay away from her. She threatened my elderly mother over her medical scooter. And the worst one, she said disabled people make the neighborhood look messy. I felt sick. This woman wasn't just hateful, she was dangerous. She had been using the HOA as her personal weapon for years. And then one post froze me completely. We moved away last month. Karen turned off our son's auditory therapy machine because she said it buzzed too much. She said she didn't think it was necessary. We didn't report it because we were scared she'd retaliate. Oh, my God, she had done it before. She had literally cut off a disabled child's medical device before, and nothing happened to her. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking so violently I had to grip the edge of the table. Karen wasn't just a bully. She wasn't just a nuisance. She was a walking threat, a danger to any vulnerable person in her path. A ticking bomb with a clipboard. And the worst part, people had tried to stand up to her, and she crushed them every time, but she hadn't met me yet. I closed my laptop, breathing deeply. For the first time since the incident, my fear transformed into something else. Resolve. Purpose. A fire that no amount of Karen's arrogance could extinguish. This ends with me, I whispered to myself, glancing at Lily's room. I didn't know how yet, but I knew one thing. Karen's past wasn't going to stay hidden anymore. Not when my daughter's life was at stake. And the next step, the one I knew I had to take, would change everything. That night, the neighborhood felt different, tense, heavy, like the air itself knew something was about to happen. The street was quiet, too quiet, with only the soft rustling of leaves and the distant hum of traffic. Most houses had their curtains drawn, porch lights off, families tucked inside. But I couldn't sleep. Not after everything I'd uncovered about Karen. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily gasping for air. I saw her tiny hand shaking. I saw Karen's cold smile as she twisted the oxygen valve off like it was nothing. I sat on the couch, holding Lily's drawing, the little figure of her on the swing and the dark, scribbled shadow looming nearby, and I made up my mind. This ends tonight. Around 10 p.m., when Lily was sleeping peacefully in her room, I stepped outside to clear my head. The moment I opened the door, I noticed something strange. Light. Karen's house, the blue one, had all its lights on. Every window glowing. That was unusual. Karen was strict about her energy conservation guidelines to the point of fining neighbors for keeping holiday lights on past 9 p.m. But tonight, her house glowed like a lighthouse in a storm. I walked down my porch steps slowly, glancing toward her place. Something felt off. Way off. Then I heard it shouting. Muffled, angry shouting coming from inside her house. A man's voice. And her voice. Both loud. Both explosive. I stepped closer, instinctively drawn by the tension. You can't keep doing this, Karen, the man yelled. Don't you dare raise your voice at me, she shrieked back. I froze. Karen? Being yelled at? By who? Then I saw a shadow move inside the window, a large figure pacing back and forth. Karen lived alone. No husband. No kids. No visitors. No one ever came to her house until tonight. I moved closer, staying behind a tree in my yard. The yelling intensified. Glass clinked. Something, maybe a cup, slammed onto a table. Then I heard him clearly. You almost killed that girl. Do you understand what you've done? He knew. Someone inside her house knew everything she'd done. Karen's voice cracked with rage. I didn't kill anyone. She was being loud. And her father. That child is disabled. Karen, what is wrong with you? My breath caught. Why was he defending us? Who was he? A relative? A board member? Someone from her past? Karen snapped back, voice dripping with venom. You don't understand HOA rules, Michael. You never did. That tank was ruining the neighborhood aesthetic. Michael. So that was his name. No neighborhood aesthetic is worth a child's life, he roared. I could hear Karen pacing now, her footsteps sharp, fast, unstable. You think I'm the villain? These people bring down property value. Their mess. Their disabilities. There. She choked mid-sentence. Silence. Michael spoke again, but softer, heartbreakingly soft. You ruined our family once with this. Are you trying to do it again? My heart dropped. Family? Had Karen harmed someone else in her past? Her own family? Michael's voice trembled now. Do you remember what you did to Mom? To her oxygen machine? You said the same thing, that it was too loud, that she was too much, and she... He stopped. A heavy, painful silence filled the air. Karen whispered, That wasn't my fault. It was, he said, you disconnected her machine. You killed her, Karen. My entire body went cold. Karen's hatred, her obsession, her cruelty, it came from somewhere deep, dark, and twisted. A childhood trauma? A guilty past? A denial so strong it turned her into a monster? Suddenly, Karen screamed so loudly the whole street echoed. Get out of my house. No, Michael said, not until you admit what you did to that girl today. Karen's footsteps charged forward. Then a loud crash erupted from inside. Something heavy fell. A chair, maybe. I stepped into the street now, heart racing. If he was in danger, I couldn't just stand here. Then the front door burst open. Michael stumbled out, rubbing the side of his head. Karen shoved him violently, screaming, Get out. I am the HOA president. I am in control here. She didn't even notice me approaching until I spoke. Karen. She spun around, hair disheveled, eyes wide with fury. What are you doing here? Michael turned toward me, stunned. You're the father. Daniel, right? I nodded. Are you okay? He waved his hand dismissively. I'm fine. Then he pointed at Karen. She needs help. Real help. Karen's voice cracked into a shrill screech. I did nothing wrong. Nothing. That girl is a nuisance. That's when I stepped closer, anger boiling over. You turned off her oxygen, Karen. She could have died. Lies, she shrieked, shaking, almost unhinged. All of you are lying. Her breathing turned rapid, erratic, like she was spiraling. Michael whispered to me, she's worse than I thought. When she feels cornered, she lashes out. She's dangerous, I said. He nodded. And unstable. At that moment, Karen reached behind her porch table and grabbed something, a metal HOA clipboard with sharp edges. She held it like a weapon. Stay away from me, she yelled. I will not be threatened by you people. Michael stepped back. I stepped forward. Karen put down. She raised it higher, shaking violently. I won't let you ruin my neighborhood. Then headlights. A police cruiser turned onto the street. Karen froze. Her hand trembled. Her eyes darted wildly. The car stopped. 2 officers stepped out, Harper and Martinez from earlier. They saw Karen holding the clipboard, her posture threatening, her eyes manic. Ma'am, Officer Harper said, put the object down. Karen screamed. These people are lying. They're trying to destroy me. Ma'am, Harper repeated firmly, put it down now. Karen looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something behind her rage. Fear. Loss of control. A lifetime of guilt clawing its way up. But she didn't lower the clipboard. She charged, straight at me. I braced myself. But before she reached me, Officer Martinez tackled her from the side, pulling her to the ground. The clipboard clattered across the porch. Karen screamed, kicked, thrashed, but Harper pinned her wrists. You're under arrest, Harper said calmly. For assault, harassment, and endangerment. Karen's screams echoed through the street as they handcuffed her. Michael watched, shoulders heavy with relief and sorrow. She needed to be stopped, he whispered. Thank you for protecting your daughter. And for standing up in a way our family never could. I didn't know what to say. All I could think about was Lily. I just want her safe, I said quietly. You did good, he replied. As the police car drove away with Karen screaming inside, a weight lifted from my chest, a weight I'd been carrying for too long. But the story wasn't over. What happened in the days after her arrest would expose even more truths and finally bring justice to every family she'd hurt. The night Karen was taken away, the neighborhood felt like it had exhaled for the first time in years. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It felt lighter, cleaner, safe. But inside my house, I couldn't relax yet. Not until I knew Lily was truly safe. I checked on her again. Asleep, her oxygen tank humming softly beside her bed. Her breaths were steady. Her little hand rested gently on her chest, rising and falling peacefully. For the first time in hours, I allowed myself to breathe, too. But justice, real justice, doesn't happen with a single arrest. It comes from truth, the whole truth, being dragged into the light. And that was the part that was about to shake our quiet neighborhood to its core. The next morning, the explosion of truth. By sunrise, whispers had already spread across the entire block. Neighbors who'd avoided each other for years were suddenly outside, talking in clusters. Some looked worried. Some looked relieved. Some looked guilty, like they'd been complicit by staying silent. When I stepped outside, Mrs. Johnson from across the street hurried toward me. Daniel, honey, we heard the screaming last night. Is Lily okay? She's safe now, I said. But Karen, she tried to turn off her oxygen. Her face fell. Oh, dear Lord. I knew Karen was strict, but doing that to a child... She's done it before, I said, not just to my daughter. More neighbors joined, forming a small crowd. You could feel the fear mixing with anger. One man muttered, I knew she was unstable. She fined me because my kids' chalk drawings were visual clutter. Another added, she told my husband his wheelchair ramp was too visible. But the real shock came when Michael, Karen's brother, stepped forward. He had dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept all night. My sister needs help, he began, but she also needs to face the things she's done. Everyone fell silent. Years ago, he continued quietly, our mother depended on an oxygen machine. Karen hated the noise it made. She unplugged it one day while I was out. His voice cracked. Mom didn't make it. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Karen refused to accept responsibility. She convinced herself she was improving the house. She's been chasing control ever since. And when she joined the HOA, that obsession got worse. My stomach twisted. Everything made sense now. Karen wasn't just cruel, she was reliving her trauma through other people's children. The neighbors now looked horrified, at the truth, at their silence, at themselves. We have to report everything, Mrs. Johnson said firmly. All of us. She can't come back here. And for the first time ever, everyone agreed. The investigation begins. When the detectives arrived at noon, they were shocked by the number of neighbors lining up to give statements. One after another, people came forward. She threatened to fine me because my autistic son flaps his hands. She tried to force me to remove my husband's medical scooter. She banged on my door at 6 a.m. because my baby cried. She told me disabled children shouldn't live in quiet neighborhoods. It was a flood of confessions, years of suffering released in a single afternoon. The detectives then questioned me again. And Michael. And finally, once Lily woke up and felt strong enough, she gave a small, quiet statement too, her hand in mine the whole time. Her voice trembled, but she spoke with more courage than any adult there. She turned off my air. I couldn't breathe. I was scared. The detective's eyes softened with heartbreak and rage. That's all we need, sweetheart, she said gently. Karen faces consequences. Within hours, Karen was hit with multiple charges. Heavy checkmark child endangerment. Heavy checkmark assault. Heavy checkmark tampering with medical equipment, a felony. Heavy checkmark harassment. Heavy checkmark violation of disability rights laws. She was denied immediate bail. Her brother only said one thing before the officers drove her away again. Maybe now she'll finally get help. And maybe now kids like Lily will be safe. I didn't know what to say. I only nodded. The HOA board collapses. Karen had ruled the HOA with fear, but once she was gone, everything changed. A week later, the board held an emergency vote and dissolved the HOA until further notice. In their official letter, they wrote, Karen misused her authority, violated homeowner rights, and endangered residents. We failed to stop her. We are deeply sorry. The neighborhood felt like it had been reborn. No more absurd fines. No more unwanted inspections. No more fear. It was quiet, but not Karen's version of quiet. It was peaceful. Real peaceful. Healing begins. Lily slowly returned to her old self. Her smile came back. Her soft humming returned. She started drawing again, this time without shaky hands. One afternoon, she came outside with her sketchbook and sat on the porch swing. I sat beside her, heart full, and she showed me her new drawing. A little girl on a swing. A big oxygen tank. A man, me, standing protectively beside her. And a tiny police car driving away from a dark scribble labeled Bad Lady. I laughed softly, my throat tight with emotion. You saved me, Daddy, she whispered. No, I said, hugging her gently. You saved yourself. And you saved this whole neighborhood. But the truth was, she saved me too. She gave me strength I didn't know I had. The community's new beginning. In the weeks that followed, something beautiful happened. Neighbors began connecting in ways they never had before. People brought Lily flowers, cards, and stuffed animals. Kids her age came to play with her. Someone even donated a new oxygen tank cover decorated with butterflies. And every single neighbor made it clear Karen would never return to this street. Not physically, not in spirit, not in fear. Lily was safe. And finally, so was I. What happened to Karen was tragic, but necessary. Some people break under guilt and trauma. Some surrender to cruelty. And some become dangers to everyone around them. But justice isn't revenge. It's protection. And this time, justice finally won. If you're still here, thank you. Stories like this are never easy to listen to, but they remind us why we need to protect the vulnerable, stand up against abuse, and speak out when something feels wrong. If this story touched your heart, if it made you angry, emotional, or grateful that justice was served, then please drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Your support truly keeps this channel alive. And before you scroll away, hit subscribe so you never miss a story that matters, a story that could save someone's life.